Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. India is a land of such incredible things one could never get enough of. India, once the wealthiest country in the world, attracted invaders from far across. Some accepted India as it was and dissolved in the Indian richness, but few countries came under the shadow of greed and exploited the wealth resources. We all are aware that the country which ruled India for 200 years was the Great Britain. Their policies of governing the nation was against the people's moral. They were cruel and created partiality. Millions of Indians died under the foreign rule. Those who raised their voice for independence were brutally jailed and killed. However, the collective inputs of many patriots gave us independence on 15th August 1947. It wasn't easy to get independence from Britain. Some facts related to the struggle for independence are not yet unearthed, but some definitely are. Here are some of very less known facts about Indian independence that you must know and that would leave you stunned. Things you didn't know about India's Independence Day. Why does India share its Independence Day with South Korea, and who was the King of India after August 15, 1947? Indian independence on August 15, 1947 freed a fifth of the world's population from colonial rule and heralded the end of imperialism. The date of independence was chosen to satisfy Mountbatten's vanity. What is often forgotten in the nationalistic histories of the day is just how chaotic independence was. After 200 years of holding on to India any way they could, the British, wrecked up by World War II, wanted to get out as fast as possible. Important decisions, such as the exact date of transfer of power, were chosen using less than ideal methods. When the last British Viceroy, Lord Mountbatten, was asked why he chose August 15 as the day to hand over powers to Indian, this was his reply. The date I chose came out of the blue. I chose it in reply to a question I was determined to show I was the master of the whole event. When they asked, had I set a date, I knew it had to be soon. I hadn't worked it out exactly then. I thought it had to be about August or September, and then I went out to the 15th August. Why? Because it was the second anniversary of Japan's surrender. August 15, 1945 was when Japan surrendered after it was pulverized by two nuclear bombs. The date had a personal appeal for Mountbatten, as he had been Supreme Allied Commander of Southeast Asia Command and had accepted the Japanese surrender himself in Singapore. South Korea, at the time colonized by Japan, also celebrates this day as their Independence Day. In an improbable coincidence, both countries reference the same events, Japan's surrender. Of course, the fact that Independence Day for one-fifth of humanity was chosen to flatter the vanity of a erstwhile viceroy should give you a small indication as to why things went so wrong. The reason for this delay was to make sure that the British did not have to bear any responsibility for the Punjab Holocaust, since now the killing would take place after the Raj had ceased to exist. In a report to the Secretary of State for India on 16th August, Mountbatten writes, "It had been obvious all along that the later we postponed publication of the Punjab Boundary Award, the less would be inevitable odium react upon the British." As expected, this criminal delay played its part in greatly increasing the panic in the Punjab, especially since any minority population transfer would now need take place under hostile governments rather than under the Raj, which was seen to be largely neutral. Thus, when the boundaries were finally announced, the Punjab simply exploded into violence. The Rowla that followed was unprecedented and saw both halves of the province empty themselves of their minorities. August 15 was Independence Day, but partition actually took place 2 days later. It was well known that the Punjab was a tinderbox and splitting it would almost certainly exacerbate the situation. One way to keep things under control was to announce partition before independence. thus giving advance warning in case anyone wanted to migrate. Thus we have even Jenkins, the governor of Punjab, writing frantic letters to Mountbatten to have the boundary award published before August 15. Giving this urgency, Sir Cyril Radcliffe, working in record time, actually had the boundary ready by 9 August. Shockingly, Mountbatten refused to publish the award till August 17. On the morning of August 15, while Punjabi had ceased being subjects of the Raj, surely they did not know whether they were citizens of India or Pakistan. Pakistan changed its Independence Day to August 14. Even though Pakistan observes its Independence Day on August 14, technically the day it achieved from freedom is the same as India. The Independence of India Act is quite clear when it states that as from the 15th day of August 1947, two independent dominions shall be set up in India, to be known respectively as India and Pakistan. In fact, the first postage stamp that Pakistan printed have on them 15th August 1947 as the date of independence. In Pakistan, however, this date was changed to August 14 in 1948. Something this was because Mountbatten delivered the King's message of independence in Karachi on August 14, 1947. Others postulate that it was because August 14, 1948 was extremely holy in Islam. It was the 27th day of Ramzan, or maybe Pakistan just wanted to be a day ahead of India. Whatever the reason, it led to an incongruous situation where twins ended up with different birth date. India didn't achieve Purna Swaraj till 1950. In the Congress iconography, its Purna Swaraj resolution of 1930 occupies a special place. It was the first time the party had declared complete independence as its goal, moving on from dominant status. Therefore, it is somewhat ironic that when India eventually acquired freedom on August 15, 1947, it actually became a constitutional monarch with King George VI, styled the King of India, as its head of state in much the same mold as Australia or Canada today. Unlike those two countries, too, India abolished the monarch, becoming a republic on January 26, 1950. Pakistan remained a dominant right till 1956. Consequently, in 1953, when Elizabeth II was sworn in, one of her titles was Queen of her Pakistan. Independence Day inexplicably saw an outpouring of affection for our departing colonizers. Massive crowds thronged Delhi on August 15 for the ceremonies relating to the transfer of power. The people hailed Gandhi and Nehru as would be expected, but also puzzling cheered on Mountbatten as well. This described by the Indian Army General Fauji Akbar in its account of the day's events. On both occasions, the Governor General, when he drove in his state coach, was acclaimed as no other Governor General of India within living memory has been greeted. Cries of Mountbatten Zindabad and Lord Sahib Zindabad were heard. The day's program originally included a ceremonial lowering of Union Jack. On a request from Mountbatten, however, Nehru agreed to skip this since it could offended British sensibilities. Overwhelmed by this reception, Mountbatten writes, "The 15th of August has certainly turned out to be the most remarkable and inspiring day of my life. As the cherry on the top, British troops departing for the UK were giving a very warm send-off in Mumbai as well. Mountbatten estimates that there were several hundreds of thousands in reception with chants of England, Zindabad and Jai England for what was still the previous day a colonial army of occupation." 10 little known facts about India's first Independence Day. First, the original independence plan was for the British to transfer power by June 1948, but the appointment of Lord Mountbatten as the new viceroy in February 1947 changed that. Following the turmoil that followed Jinnah's insistence on the partition, he advanced the date to a year earlier. After a historic meeting with the major political parties on June 3, Mountbatten decided on the date of August 15. He apparently thought of the date to be lucky for him because it was the day 2 years earlier that the Japanese had surrendered to him at the end of World War II. Number 2. Indian independence was officially declared at the 5th sitting of the Constituent Assembly of India in the Constitution Hall in what is now the Parliament House on the midnight of August 1415. The session began at 11 p.m. with the President of Constituent Assembly Dr. Rajendra Prasad in the chair and the recitation of Vande Mataram by freedom fighter Sucheta Kriplani. This was followed by Dr. Prasad delivering his presidential speech, which began with the lines, "In this solemn hour of history, when after many years of struggle we are taking over the governance of this country, let us offer humble thanks to the almighty power that shapes the destinies of men and nations, and let us recall in grateful remembrance the services and sacrifices of all those men and women, known and unknown, who with smiles on their face walked to the gallows or faced bullets on their chest." Number 3. Jawaharlal Nehru, followed with his famous Tryst with Destiny oration, considered to be one of the greatest speeches ever. He then moved the India Freedom Resolution, which stated, "After the last stroke of midnight, all members of Constituent Assembly present on this occasion do take the following pledge at this solemn moment, when the people of India, through suffering sacrifice, have secured freedom. I, a member of the Constituent Assembly of India, do dedicate myself in all humanity to the service of India and her people to the end that this ancient land attain her rightful place in the world and make her full and willing contribution to the promotion of world peace and the welfare of mankind." Number 4. The resolution was seconded by Chaudhry Khalizuddin, a member of Muslim League. This was followed by a speech by Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. He then moved for the freedom motion to be adopted by Assembly. This was followed by Dr. Prasad proposing that it should be intimated to the Viceroy that, first, Constituent Assembly of India has assumed power for the governments of India. Second, the Constituent Assembly of India has endorsed the recommendation that Lord Mountbatten to Governor General of India from the 15th August 1947, and that this message be conveyed forthwith Mountbatten by the President and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Number 5. This was followed by the last phase of the session when Mumbai-based educationist and freedom fighter Hansa Mehta presented the new Indian national flag to the nation on behalf of the women of the country. Dr. Rajendra Prasad accepted the flag. Sucheta Kriplani then rounded off the session by singing the first verses of Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara and Jana Gana Mana. It was not yet the national anthem. As stated, it would be acquired in 1950. The house was then adjourned till the morning. Number 6. The ceremonies of August 15, 1947 started at 8 p.m. with Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and his cabinet, as well the newly redesignated Governor General Lord Mountbatten being sworn in the Government House. Chief Justice of the Federal Court, as the Supreme Court was called, and then Justice Harilal Kanaya administered the oath to the new Governor General, who then saw in the Prime Minister and his Minister Jagjeevan Ram, still in hospital after recent plane crash, was the only minister who could not be sworn in that day. Number 7. The Mountbatten then made a speech as the Governor General, following which he signalled that the Indian national flag to be flown over the dome of a building. A salvo of 31 gun salute heralded the unfurling of independent India's flag for the first time. Pandit Nehru came on the terrace to watch the cheering crowd and to bid goodbye to the Governor General. Mountbatten waved to the new Prime Minister and saluted the Indian flag now flying over the building. Number 8. While the ceremonies had been going on inside, the walled enclosure outside had been cordoned off by the police. Red carpet had been laid down on the steps. Detachment of the Navy, Army, and Air Force were drawn up. Everything was ready for the traditional drive in state of the Governor General. Car streamed in, bringing distinguished visitor. Suddenly there was a movement at the police barricades. Laughing and shouting slogans, people rushed towards the entrance. They got in amidst the guard of honor. The soldiers stood nonplussed, neither breaking rank nor interfering with the people. Nehru then appeared on the terrace amidst loud and prolonged cheering. Number 9. The first public hosting of the Indian flag took place in the afternoon at Princess Park near India Gate. Over half of a million people had gathered there to watch the ceremony. The parade ground was enclosed with the fire fencing and seats were numbered to receive the special guests. But there was no stopping the crowd. The police gave up after a while and let the people have their way. Many notable guests including minister, diplomatic representative and military chiefs had to return after trying to enter in vain. The drill and the march past had to be abandoned because of the rush. The official account mentioned from that time talk about Mountbatten and Nehru helping lost children and women caught in the rush. Number 10. When the tricolor was finally hosted, there was a shower of rain and a rainbow appeared vividly in the sky. People saw in this a good omen. According to an account from that time, they looked at three prominent colors of the rainbow and exclaimed heavily, "A flag!" The first hosting national flag on the ramparts of the Red Fort, which has since become a tradition on Independence Day, was done by Prime Minister Nehru on the morning of the next day, August 16. History of Independence. On August 15, 1947, the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, raised the Indian national flag at the Red Fort in New Delhi. Flag hosting ceremonies take place and cultural programs are held in governmental and non-governmental institutions all over the country on this day. For India, August 15 is a day of her rebirth, a new beginning. At midnight on August 15, 1947, the British rulers handed the country back to its Indian leaders, ending a remarkable struggle that lasted years. It was on this historic date on which sovereign India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, unfurled the tricolor flag on the nation of the glorious Red Fort. Kite flying is celebrated as an event associated with Independence Day. People symbolize their patriotism towards the country with the uses of national flags of different sizes. They decorate their homes, cars, etc. with the colors of the flag. Indians living in the various parts of the world also celebrate Independence Day with parades and pageants. Several cities in the United States have declared August 15 as India Day. After the British victory in the Battle of Plassey of 1757, the rule of East India Company started in India. By 1858, the British Crown had assumed control over India. The situation after World War I was marked with suppressive and exploitative laws by the British. This led to revolutionary calls for independence and sparked the phase of non-violent and non-cooperation movement, followed by the civil disobedience movement. The enduring leader and a national symbol for all these movements was Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the father of the nation. The next decades were marked with constant struggle between the Indians and the British for freedom. Many movements and acts were carried out by the Indian National Congress, freedom fighters and the people of India. In 1946, the Labour government, the exchequer of Britain, thought of ending their rule over India because of their exhaustion of capital post World War II. The British government announced during the early 1947 that they intended to transfer power to the Indians by the month of June 1948. This approaching independence could not decrease the Hindu-Muslim violence in Bengal and Punjab. This led to Lord Mountbatten, the then Viceroy of India, to propose the power handover date, owing to the fact that the unprepared British army could not cope with the increased violence in the country. In the month of June in 1947, notable Indian leaders, namely Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Abdul Kalam Azad, Master Tara Singh, B.R. Ambedkar, agreed for a partition of India along the religious outline. Millions of people belonging to different religious groups tramped across the newly drawn border to find places to reside. This cost around 2,50,000 to 5 lakhs lives. On August 15, 1947 midnight, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru proclaimed India's independence by reading out his famous speech known as Tryst with Destiny. Pandit Nehru said, "Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny. And now the time comes when we will redeem our pledge not wholly or in a full measure, but very subsequently at the stroke of the midnight hours. When the world sleeps, India will awake to a life and freedom. A moment comes which comes but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends, when the soul of a nation long suppressed find utterance, we end today a period of ill fortune and India discover herself again." Thanks for watching our video. If you like this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Jai Hind, Jai